It was a cold night, the kind that made the world feel smaller, quieter, almost too still. The clock on my nightstand had just blinked 2:03 a.m. when I heard it. A frantic knock, not the kind that waits for a response, the kind that begs. I froze. My house sat on the edge of a sleepy town in Oregon, far from streetlights or passing cars. No one came here at this hour. My first thought was that it was a mistake. Then came the second knock, louder, desperate. Heart pounding, I grabbed my phone and crept toward the door. The porch light flickered to life, and that's when I saw her, my sister, Claire, barefoot, soaked, trembling. Her hair was a tangled mess, her lips blue from the cold. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. "Help. Me," she whispered before collapsing onto the porch. "Claire." I dropped to my knees, shaking her shoulder. Her skin was clammy. She was barely breathing. I fumbled to unlock my phone, hands trembling as I dialed 911. Then, my screen lit up. A text message. From Mom. I almost didn't check it, but curiosity, or fear, made me glance. "Mom, don't save that cripple." For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. I blinked, reading it again, each word slicing through my chest. I stared at my sister, her body limp, her face pale, and then back at the message. What kind of mother would send that? The operator's voice came through the phone. 911, what's your emergency? My voice shook. My sister collapsed outside my house. She's not breathing right. Even as I spoke, I couldn't stop glancing at that text. It was still there. Real. Mom's words. Cold. Deliberate. Burned into my mind. Something was very, very wrong. The ambulance lights painted my quiet street in shades of red and blue. Neighbors peeked through their blinds as paramedics rushed Claire inside, their radios buzzing. I followed close behind, clutching her phone that had fallen from her jacket pocket. At the hospital, they wheeled her into the emergency room. I stood there, half awake, half somewhere between fear and disbelief. My mother's text kept replaying in my head. "Don't save that cripple." What kind of mother says that about her own daughter? When the nurse finally came out, she looked serious. "She's stable for now," she said softly. But whatever happened, it wasn't just exhaustion. We found bruises, old and new. My stomach dropped. "Bruises? From what?" The nurse hesitated, glancing around before lowering her voice. "Maybe you should talk to the police." "Someone needs to," I nodded numbly and sat down. My mind was spinning. Claire and I hadn't spoken much in the past year. After Dad died, Mom turned bitter. Controlling, angry, cruel in ways that only people behind closed doors would ever understand. Claire had moved back home after her accident, and I'd tried to help from a distance. But Mom always said, "She's fine. Stay out of it." Now I realized what that really meant. I unlocked Claire's phone. There were dozens of missed calls and messages from one contact. "Mom, you brought this on yourself. Don't ever come to your sister again. You ruined our family." Each text felt like another punch to the gut. Then one message, dated earlier that night, caught my attention. "If you tell her what you found, you'll regret it." What she found. I opened her recent photos. Most were ordinary, selfies, groceries, the dog. But buried between them was one photo that didn't belong. A stack of documents, half burned, with our father's name on the top page. It read, "Property Transfer Agreement, Revision 2016," and right beneath it, my name. The nurse came back to tell me Claire was awake. My heart was hammering as I stood. Whatever my sister had discovered, it wasn't just a family secret. It was something Mom didn't want either of us to survive knowing. When I walked into Claire's hospital room, she looked pale and fragile, like someone who had fought through hell just to breathe. Her left leg, still wrapped in braces, rested awkwardly on the bed. The beeping of the heart monitor echoed softly in the background. She turned her head slowly when she saw me. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did," I said, sitting beside her. "You collapsed in front of my house at 2 a.m. What happened to you, Claire?" Her eyes flicked toward the window, as if she was afraid someone might be listening. "You shouldn't have called the ambulance," she said quietly. "Mom's going to lose it." I took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. "Mom already texted me," I said. "She told me not to save you." Her face tightened. "She what?" I held up my phone to show her the message. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she wasn't surprised. Of course she did, she murmured. She's been waiting for something like this. Waiting for what? I asked. She looked straight at me then, her voice trembling. For me to die. My whole body went cold. I wanted to believe she was exaggerating, that trauma had twisted her memory. But deep down, I knew Claire wasn't lying. Not after what I'd just seen on her phone. I reached into my pocket and pulled it out. I went through your photos, I admitted. I saw the documents. What were they? Claire hesitated, then nodded slowly. I was going to tell you, she said. That's why I came. Mom and her lawyer, Mr. Albright, rewrote Dad's will after he died. They forged your signature, I stared at her. That's impossible. Dad's will was settled years ago. The house went to Mom, and the business shares went to you. She shook her head. That's what they told us. But that's not what Dad wanted. I found the original papers hidden in the attic 2 months ago. She paused to take a shaky breath, glancing toward the hallway. Dad left the property, the investments, everything, to you, not me. You were supposed to inherit it all because you took care of him when he got sick. But Mom couldn't stand it. She changed everything after he died. She told me it was for family stability, but I think she wanted full control. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. I remembered how Dad had always said, "You'll understand everything when I'm gone." I used to think it was just something people said when they were dying. But maybe he knew. Maybe he suspected what Mom was capable of. She burned the papers, Claire continued. But I made copies before she found out. She came after me when she realized. That's why I fell down the stairs. It wasn't an accident, no matter what she told you. I sat there in stunned silence, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. You're saying Mom tried to kill you? Claire's eyes filled with tears again, but she didn't nod or deny it. She just whispered. She said I ruined everything, that if I'd kept quiet, she would have let me live in peace. But once I found out what she did, she said I'd destroyed her life. She reached for my hand. I came to you because I didn't know who else to trust. You're the only one she can't manipulate anymore. I squeezed her hand gently. We'll fix this, I said. We'll go to the police. Claire gave a bitter laugh. The same police captain who's her old poker buddy? No thanks. Her voice cracked then, and she looked away. You think you can fight her, but you don't know her anymore, Sam. She's not just cruel, she's calculated. She's been planning this for years. I thought back to the night of Dad's funeral. Mom had been so composed, almost serene, while everyone else broke down. She'd held Claire's shoulder, whispering something to her that made my sister flinch. I never asked what it was. Now I wished I had. I looked at Claire's bruises, the bandage on her temple, the pale marks on her arms. She did this to you? Claire nodded weakly. She said no one would believe me, that I'm the broken one. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The room felt smaller, heavier. Every beep from the monitor was like a countdown. Then I said, Where are the copies? In my car, she whispered. In the glove box. I was on my way to your place when she called me. I didn't answer. Next thing I knew, her car was behind me. I lost control on the turn. The last thing I remember is crawling out and trying to reach your porch. I felt my blood turn cold. You mean she chased you? Claire didn't respond, but the look in her eyes said everything. I'll get them, I said firmly. You stay here and rest. Don't tell anyone where you are. She grabbed my hand again, tighter this time. Be careful, Sam. She won't stop. Not until she gets those papers back. I don't care, I said. I'm done being scared of her. When I left the hospital, the dawn light was just beginning to creep over the horizon. The world looked still, almost peaceful, but inside me there was a storm. My mother, the woman who tucked me into bed, packed my lunches, and kissed my forehead, was capable of destroying her own daughters for money and power. I got into my car and drove to the impound lot where Claire's car had been towed after the accident. The guard barely looked up when I flashed my ID. Lot C, row 5, he said. The car was a wreck, windshield shattered, bumper torn, front left side crushed like paper. I opened the passenger door, and there it was, a small envelope taped under the glove box. I tore it open. Inside were 3 folded pages, copies of the original will, notarized and dated 3 months before Dad's death. The signature was unmistakably his, and just below his name, written in his familiar, messy handwriting, everything I own shall go to my daughter, Samantha Miller, who has stood by me through all things. I sank against the seat, staring at the words through tears. It was true. Claire had risked everything to show me this. But as I sat there, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number, I answered, my voice trembling. Hello? A pause. Then my mother's voice, calm and cold as glass. I hope you know what you're doing, Samantha, she said. Because once you cross me, there's no going back. The line went dead, and in that moment, I realized Claire was right. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about survival. The drive to our old family home on Willow Creek felt longer than it ever had before. The road wound through acres of dead maple trees and quiet, forgotten houses. Morning mist hung low over the fields, and the air was cold enough to sting when I breathed. I hadn't been back here in months, by choice. Every inch of that place was soaked in memories I'd spent years trying to bury. As I pulled up to the gate, I saw that nothing had changed. The house stood there like a relic of a family that never really existed. 2 stories of white wood and black shutters, trimmed hedges that looked too perfect, and the same heavy iron gate that always made a sound like a dying animal when it opened. I sat in my car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. My pulse thudded in my ears. I could still hear Mom's voice from the call earlier. Once you cross me, there's no going back. But that was the thing. There was nothing left to go back to. When I finally got out, the gravel crunched under my shoes. I walked up the porch steps, the boards creaking the same way they did when Dad used to sneak out for late-night cigarettes. Through the front window, I could see the living room exactly as I remembered it. Spotless, sterile, and cold. Mom was already there. She was sitting in her armchair, a cup of coffee in one hand, her phone in the other. Like she'd been expecting me. Well, she said without looking up. That didn't take long. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. We need to talk. She finally met my eyes. About what? The mess your sister made again? I warned her not to drag you into it. I walked closer, setting the envelope down on the table between us. You mean this mess? Her gaze flickered to the papers, but she didn't move. You went through her car. You tried to kill her, I said quietly. For a second, she looked almost human, shocked even. Then her face hardened. Careful, Samantha. You're making serious accusations, I leaned forward. You burned Dad's will. You forged my signature. You stole everything he left me. She took a slow sip of coffee, then placed the cup down with a click. Your father wasn't thinking clearly when he wrote that will. He was dying, remember? Full of painkillers and regret. I simply made sure things were handled properly. I felt my voice shaking. Properly? You called Claire a cripple. You wanted her dead. That made her stand up. Enough! Her voice cracked through the room like a whip. You don't understand what that girl has done to this family. She destroyed everything I built. Everything you built? I laughed bitterly. You mean the lies? The money? The fake reputation? Her eyes narrowed. I built this family from nothing while your father drank himself to death. I kept us afloat. I kept your names clean. And this is how you repay me? I looked around the house, at the framed photos, the spotless floors, the smell of lavender polish. You didn't build a family, Mom. You built a prison. For the first time, I saw something in her face flicker. A shadow of guilt, maybe. But it disappeared as quickly as it came. You always were dramatic, she said. You and your sister, 2 sides of the same disappointment. Claire with her pity games, and you with your moral crusades. I took a step closer. Dad trusted you. He loved you, and you betrayed him. She stared at me for a long moment, then smiled. A thin, lifeless smile. Your father loved control, and when he realized he couldn't have it anymore, he tried to pass it on to you. I couldn't allow that. My heart thudded painfully. So you destroyed his last wish. I preserved this family, she said sharply. If I'd let you take everything, what would have happened to Claire? To me? You think you're some kind of savior, but you've always been naive. The world doesn't reward goodness, Samantha. It rewards power. I took a deep breath. Then I guess I'm done being powerless. She raised an eyebrow. And what do you plan to do? Run to the police? You think they'll believe you? You've got copies, sure, but who notarized them? Your father's dead. His lawyer's been paid. You don't have proof of anything. I picked up the envelope. Maybe not yet. But Claire's alive. She told me everything, and I recorded this conversation. Her eyes went wide for the first time. I pulled my phone out, showing the small red recording icon glowing on the screen. You can't manipulate this away, Mom. Not this time. For a moment, the silence between us felt heavy enough to crush me. Then she smiled again, almost sadly. You really are his daughter. I turned toward the door, my hands shaking but steady enough to hold the truth. You'll regret this, Samantha, she said as I opened it. You'll tear this family apart. I looked back at her. It was already broken. Outside, the morning sun had burned through the fog. I stood on the porch, breathing in the cold air, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel suffocating. I walked down the steps, clutching the envelope like it was the last piece of my father I had left. But as I reached my car, I noticed something that froze me in place. The driver's side window was shattered, the glove box was open, and the copies, gone. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. A text message. Unknown. You shouldn't have come here alone. I looked back toward the house. The front door was still open, but my mother was gone. I didn't wait to see where she went. I jumped into my car, started the engine, and sped down the road, my heart pounding harder with every turn. Somewhere between panic and rage, I realized what had just happened. She wasn't trying to protect the past anymore. She was preparing for war, and I wasn't going to lose this time. The sun was rising, painting the sky in streaks of pink and gold, but none of it mattered. My hands were still trembling on the steering wheel as I sped down the highway, replaying every second inside that house. The missing envelope, the broken glass, the text message, it was all too deliberate. My mother hadn't just scared me. She'd sent a warning. By the time I reached the edge of town, I pulled into a diner parking lot to collect myself. I sat there for a minute, breathing deeply, trying to calm the pounding in my chest. I needed to think clearly. Claire was still in the hospital. I had to protect her first. I checked my phone again. No new messages. I opened my voice recorder app and replayed the conversation with Mom. Her voice was crystal clear, cold, manipulative, admitting she preserved the family and altered the will. It wasn't a full confession, but it was close enough to make her sweat. I saved the file twice, then uploaded it to a private cloud folder under a fake name. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt a sliver of control. Then I called Detective Harris. We'd gone to high school together, though we hadn't spoken in years. He answered on the second ring. Sam? Been a while. I need your help, I said. My voice was low but steady. It's about my mom and my dad's will. I have proof she forged it. There was a pause on the line. That's a serious claim. I know. And I have a recording. He hesitated. Where are you? Riverside Diner, off Highway 11. Stay there, he said. I'll meet you in 20. I hung up and exhaled. My fingers drummed against the table. 20 minutes. I could wait that long. Inside the diner, the smell of burnt coffee and bacon grease filled the air. A waitress smiled tiredly as she poured me a cup. Rough morning? She asked. You have no idea, I muttered. While I waited, I texted Claire. I found the will. Mom knows. I have a recording. Stay safe. Don't talk to anyone. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again, but it wasn't Claire. Unknown. You should have listened to me. Attached was a photo. Claire's hospital bed, empty. I froze. The world around me went silent. The coffee cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I stared at the screen, unable to breathe. No. She couldn't have... I grabbed my keys and ran out the door, my heart slamming against my ribs. Harris would have to find me later. I drove like a maniac, cutting through traffic, every red light a blur. When I burst through the hospital doors, the nurse behind the counter looked startled. Claire Miller's room, I demanded. She was discharged this morning, the nurse said. Her mother signed the papers. My stomach dropped. What? That's not possible. She wasn't cleared to leave. The nurse frowned. She insisted. Said she was fine. Left with her mother about 30 minutes ago. My vision tunneled. I stumbled back a step, gripping the edge of the counter. My mother had taken her. I ran back to my car and called Harris again, but he didn't answer. My calls went straight to voicemail. Either he was already on his way, or someone had made sure he wouldn't get there. I hit the gas and drove toward Willow Creek again, every nerve in my body burning. My mind raced through possibilities. If Mom had the will, the copies, and now Claire, she was going to erase every piece of evidence. As I approached the house, I slowed down, parking a few blocks away. The front curtains were drawn, but the faint glow of light slipped through. I stepped out quietly, keeping low as I crossed the side lawn. Through the living room window, I could see my mother pacing with a phone pressed to her ear. She was angry, her gestures sharp, deliberate. Then I saw movement behind her, Claire. She was tied to a chair, her head slumped forward, her face pale and bruised. My heart nearly stopped. I gritted my teeth and pulled out my phone. I started recording through the window, zooming in on the scene. If I couldn't save her yet, I could at least gather proof. That's when I heard a soft click behind me. "Hands where I can see them," a voice ordered. I froze. Slowly I turned around. A man in a dark coat stood there holding a gun. His face was shadowed, but his voice was familiar. "Mr. Albright," I said, recognizing my father's old lawyer. He smirked. "You should have left things alone, Samantha. Your mother just wanted peace." "Peace?" I whispered. "You helped her steal everything." He shrugged. "Everyone gets what they deserve. Some of us more than others." I lunged before he could react. The gun fired once, deafeningly loud. Pain tore across my shoulder, but adrenaline drowned it out. I shoved him into the side of the house, grabbing the gun as it clattered to the ground. Inside, my mother screamed. I kicked open the door, blood soaking through my sleeve. Claire's head jerked up. "Sam!" she cried. My mother spun toward me, her face pale. "What did you do?" "I'm taking Claire," I said, raising the gun. My voice was steady now, cold and final. "And then I'm ending this." She took a step forward. "You won't shoot me. You're not a killer." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You should have thought of that before you became one." Her hand twitched toward her pocket, but before she could move, Harris's voice boomed from the doorway. "Put it down! Everyone, hands up!" He and 2 officers stormed in, guns drawn. Relief flooded through me so fast I nearly collapsed. Harris took one look at the scene. The tied-up girl, the bloody lawyer, my mother's wild eyes, and didn't ask questions. Within minutes, they cuffed my mother and Albright. Harris knelt beside me. "You okay?" I nodded weakly, tears burning my eyes. "Claire, get her out first." As they untied her, Claire reached for my hand. "You came for me," she whispered. "Always," I said. Mom screamed as they dragged her out. "You think you've won?" "You have no idea what I'm capable of." I didn't answer. I just watched as the woman who'd spent her life pretending to be perfect was led away in handcuffs. Later, after the paramedics patched me up, Harris came over. "That recording you made, it's enough to put her away for a long time," he said. "Forgery, fraud, attempted murder. The DA's going to love this." I looked out at the flashing lights against the night sky. "I don't want revenge," I said quietly. "I just want peace." He nodded. "You deserve it." As they loaded my mother into the police car, she turned to glare at me through the window. Her eyes were still cold, still proud, still unbroken. But for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I took Claire's hand, helping her into the ambulance. The night air was heavy with sirens and smoke, but beneath all of it, I felt something strange, something like freedom. For years, my mother had played God with our lives. But not anymore. Not after tonight. The house was quieter than ever before. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the wall clock, and the occasional creak from the wooden floorboards made the silence feel alive. I hadn't been back here since the ambulance took my sister that night. But something in me, some uneasy curiosity, drew me back. Mom had vanished from town after the hospital incident. No calls, no explanations, just gone. Her phone was disconnected. Her neighbors didn't know where she went. And Dad, as usual, remained a ghost in the story. I unlocked the door with the spare key I'd kept hidden under the porch light. The air inside was thick, stale, and smelled faintly of old perfume. Mom's favorite scent, lavender and something metallic underneath, like fear. As I stepped into her bedroom, the feeling of being watched crept over me. The blinds were half open, the morning light cutting thin stripes across the messy bed. Papers were scattered on her dresser, unopened envelopes, torn receipts, an unfinished cup of coffee, like she had left in a hurry. That's when I saw it, a small brown envelope tucked halfway under her nightstand. The handwriting on it was unmistakable, my name in Mom's sharp cursive. For a long moment, I just stared at it. My hands shook as I reached down, afraid of what it might say. Inside was a folded letter, written on yellow paper. I took a deep breath and began to read. If you're reading this, it means everything has already fallen apart. I never hated your sister, but I couldn't forgive what she did. You deserve to know the truth. The night your father left, it wasn't because of me. It was because of her. She found his journals, the ones about his research money, and threatened to expose everything unless he signed it all over to her. She said she'd destroy his reputation. He gave her everything to protect the family name, but after he died, she wanted more. I tried to stop her, but she threatened me too. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please forgive me for what I said in that text. I panicked. I didn't want her dead. I just didn't want her to ruin you the way she ruined him. I dropped the letter. My chest felt tight. The air in the room seemed to vanish. All those years I'd believed I was the forgotten child. The one Mom didn't love. The one who got nothing. But the truth was twisted. My sister had built her life on blackmail and lies. Still, it didn't make sense. Why would Mom disappear? Why leave this behind? I checked the back of the letter. There was a smaller folded note taped to it. It was older, written in Dad's handwriting. The ink had faded, but I could still make out the words. To whoever finds this, there's a safety deposit box under my name at Crestview Bank. Inside is proof of everything. The money, the signatures, the threats. Don't trust anyone, not even family. A safety deposit box, proof. It hit me like lightning. That must be why Mom vanished. She must have gone after it, or was running from whoever wanted it. I shoved the letter into my jacket pocket and left the house. The cool air outside felt sharp against my skin. I called the bank as soon as I reached the car, pretending to be my father's estate executor. The woman on the line hesitated, then said the box had been accessed 2 days ago by someone using Mom's ID. My blood ran cold. Mom was alive. She had the box, and if she really meant every word in that letter, then she was in danger too. As I started the car, something in the rearview mirror caught my eye. A black sedan parked across the street. Engine running. Windows tinted. I couldn't see who was inside. But I knew instinctively, this wasn't over. The envelope had opened a door I could never close again. The engine hummed low as I sat frozen behind the wheel, eyes locked on the black sedan across the street. It hadn't been there when I entered the house. The engine was running, faint exhaust smoke curling in the cold morning air. Whoever was inside wasn't moving, just watching. For a few seconds I tried convincing myself it was nothing. Maybe a random car, maybe a neighbor's visitor. But when I turned the key and my headlights came on, the sedan's headlights blinked too, almost like a signal. My stomach twisted. I pulled out of the driveway slowly, pretending not to notice. The sedan stayed put for a few seconds, then eased forward, following at a distance. Every turn I made, it made too. Every red light, it stopped exactly 2 cars behind me. By the time I reached the old highway leading toward Crestview Bank, my hands were slick with sweat. My phone vibrated in the cup holder. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. But fear makes you do strange things. Stop driving, a man's voice said. Calm, firm, with no emotion at all. Who is this? I asked. You've got something that doesn't belong to you. My heart skipped. What are you talking about? The letter, he said. And whatever your mother told you, forget it. If you go to the bank, you won't come back. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, pulse hammering in my ears. My first instinct was to turn around, but then I remembered Mom's words. There's proof in that box. Whoever was calling didn't want me to see what was inside, which meant I had to. I drove faster, glancing in the mirror. The sedan was closer now, headlights bright, like it was pushing me. Then suddenly, it disappeared. One blink and it turned down a side street, gone into the maze of warehouses. I didn't slow down. When I reached Crestview Bank, it was still early. The glass doors were just opening, the morning sun spilling across the marble floor. Everything looked normal, too normal. I walked up to the counter and gave the clerk Dad's name, pretending to be the legal heir. She checked the records, then asked me for ID. My hand trembled slightly as I handed it over. She returned after a minute, a hesitant look on her face. "You're a little late," she said quietly. "Your mother came 2 days ago and emptied the box. But she left this." She handed me a small sealed envelope. The same handwriting, Mom's again. I stepped outside before opening it. Inside was a folded note and a key. The note read, "I knew you'd come here. If anyone followed you, don't go home. Go to the old cabin near Clearwater Ridge. Everything will make sense there. And please, be careful who you trust." There was also a tiny slip of paper with a phone number written in red ink. I looked up and saw my reflection in the bank's glass window. I looked tired, older somehow. The car that had been following me was nowhere in sight, but the feeling of being watched hadn't gone away. The key in my hand glinted in the sun, an old brass one, labeled cabin. I had 2 choices: walk away and pretend none of this ever happened, or follow Mom's trail and find out what was really inside that safety deposit box. My sister, the lies, the missing money, it all pointed to something bigger, something dangerous. I took a deep breath, started the car, and turned toward Clearwater Ridge. As I drove out of town, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mom wasn't just hiding. She was protecting something or someone. And maybe, just maybe, I was about to find out who wanted it badly enough to kill for it. The dirt road twisted like a scar through the woods, leading to the cabin I hadn't seen in over 15 years. It stood exactly as I remembered: weathered wood, chipped paint, and the faint smell of pine and rain. The kind of place where silence felt alive. My hands were shaking when I slid the brass key into the lock. The door creaked open, dust swirling in the pale morning light. For a long moment, I just stood there, breathing in the ghosts. Everything was the same. Dad's old armchair, the cracked photograph of us as kids on the mantel. Only one thing was different: a single envelope on the table, addressed to me. For Emma. I tore it open. Inside was a flash drive, a short handwritten note, and a picture of my mother with someone I didn't recognize. A man in a hospital bed. Smiling weakly, the note said, "If you're reading this, it means they know." That night I texted you. I was trying to protect you. Your sister's accident wasn't an accident. It was a cover-up. The money your father left wasn't from business deals. It was hush money. The man in this photo is your real father. They lied to both of us. Take this drive to the police. Don't trust anyone from the family, not even Lily. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. Video files filled the screen. Recordings of meetings, transfers, legal documents, all under Dad's name. Proof of fraud, offshore accounts, and payoffs worth millions. And at the end, a short clip. It was Lily, my sister, arguing with Mom in a hospital corridor. "You promised he'd never find out," Lily shouted. "I had to tell her the truth," Mom said quietly. "You and your father went too far." The video cut off. That's when I heard it, a crunch of gravel outside. I turned toward the window and saw headlights pulling up. The black sedan. I grabbed the flash drive, stuffed it into my pocket, and ran through the back door. The forest swallowed me whole, cold air, branches slapping my arms. Behind me, doors slammed and voices shouted my name. "Emma!" "Don't make this worse." It was Lily's voice. My heart cracked wide open. I turned, just enough to see her standing in the trees, flashlight trembling in her hand. "You shouldn't have come here," she said softly. "You were never supposed to see any of this." Her eyes were full of tears, but not guilt. Fear. "They'll kill us both if you take that drive," she whispered. And before I could answer, the sound of a gun cocking sliced through the night. I didn't wait. I ran, down the slope, across the creek, into the dark. The flash drive tight in my fist felt heavier than gold. Somewhere behind me, tires screeched, an engine roared, and then silence. By the time I reached the highway, the sky was turning gray. I flagged down a passing truck, climbed inside, and didn't look back. It's been 3 months since that night. The FBI took everything: Dad's company, the accounts, the lies. Lily disappeared. Mom's still missing. But the truth's out now, and so is my name. Sometimes I dream about that night, the flashlight, The forest, the sound of my sister's voice, but mostly, I dream about peace, the kind you only get after losing everything that wasn't real, because in the end, the only thing that saved me wasn't luck. It was finally seeing the truth behind the people I once called family, and as for that text, don't save that cripple. I saved her anyway. Not because she deserved it, but because I did.